What's up, hockey fans? What is going on? Welcome to episode 1 of Drop the Gloves podcast. And I brought with me a special guest today, Jake the Snake Silva from Snake Sports Talk Show. What's up, Jake?
What's going on, man? Appreciate you bringing me on by, man. And I love the title of the podcast, man, because you know what? I'm ready to drop those gloves.
Oh yeah, we both to drop them and get the fight in here.
Hell yeah, man! Come on, bring it on, man.
So let's just start off with saying I'm happy we just got hockey back, because for a while there were some questions whether or not we'd actually get to see a hockey season. So I'm just happy we got hockey back. That's what I'm happy about.
And I can't begin to tell you. I mean, this season almost feels like baseball season. You know how long the season goes on for, and you know how long the wait is. It literally felt exactly like that, because just last year, like right in the middle of summer, we were just finishing up the Stanley Cup final. And then in the end, it's like, we're waiting to see when the season was going to start and how it was going to start. And now it's officially here. I'm super excited. I'm so glad that it's finally back.
Oh yeah. Like I said, I'm just happy to have it back, because there was a lot of questions on whether or not, with the current situations, where teams were going to play. Are they going to play outside, inside, all that stuff that goes along with it. So I'm just happy we got a schedule, we got a season, and we can get into it. And we've already had a couple of different games, but let's kind of go back into the off season. I want to ask your opinion on some Boston stuff to get kind of an outsider's point of view on this stuff.
Sure.
So, the Boston Bruins, one of the two major moves really occurred for the Bruins in the offseason. One being the loss of Torrey Krug, and then the big one that I think, a lot of people didn't expect, because we kind of thought we'd have Zdeno Chara back and the Bruins would be able to come to an agreement with him to some sort, even if they had to bite the bullets, in some way, shape, or form. But he's been such a legend for the franchise that, I thought he would leave, but it's never never easy, because the guy's he's been a cornerstone of that organization forever. So the impacts of let's start with, we'll finish with Chara, and we'll start with Torrey Krug. What do you think the impacts on the Bruins are going to be from losing a guy like Krug?
So I think it's going to be very, very heavy for them, because you're talking about Torrey Krug, who, like we talked about just before we went on air, was how much of a puck distributor he is and how efficient he is when it comes to getting the rebounds back on pucks and then finding ways to generate the offense, especially when you have a really, really good front line with Patrice Bergeron, Brad Marchand, and of course David Pastrnak, and so much more down below. And losing a guy like that, and he's also not afraid to be shooting the puck either. He's the type of guy that when you need it, he's the guy that's going to grip it and rip it in the far side. But for Krug, it's a massive loss for them. And think about it, because for the Blues, it almost seemed like after losing Alex Petrangelo, and we'll talk about that later, but getting Torrey Krug was almost as if, he fit the bill. That's no big loss for us, but for Boston fans, that's a big key loss, because of the fact of a guy who's a quality defenseman, knows how to defend Tuukka Rask whenever he needs it, and of course knows how to distribute the puck, and he's got real good puck passing movement and how to get that offense generated. Think about it. If you think it's all just David Pastrnak doing his thing, he's always got to have that right-hand man that's going to generate for him to now take over on the offensive ends of the ice.
And I think where it's going to take some time to kind of get used to and get, back in the feel of stuff is Krug was very, for one, he was their best offensive defenseman by 10 miles. You know what I mean? It's not even close to the next part. He was by far their best offensive defenseman. And that's that's huge for the Bruins, because they use their defensemen a lot when it comes to setting up setting up good shots for the wingers. And if you can't do that, that's like Krug could do that very well. So they're going to, that's definitely a huge question. And the other one is Krug was probably the best one out of the defensemen when it comes to getting a puck, seeing the ice, and making a good, quick pass through the neutral zone to jumpstart the offense.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of that is where the Bruins struggled. That is where the Bruins struggled have struggled without Krug on the ice is not only clearing the puck, but making a smart, accurate pass through the neutral zone. Because when you make bad passes through the neutral zone, it ends up with 3-on-2s going the other direction.
Exactly, every time. And it happens before you even know it too. And the fact that some of these guys, when occurrences like that happen, it's just as impossible to really rebound yourself, stop yourself, and then having to rebound back because the play is already taken over. It's become a massive giveaway for the Bruins, and then it's a big time takeaway to set up that 3-on-2 as well.
Yeah. Oh no, for sure. It's Krug was definitely Torrey Krug was definitely a loss for them on the offensive side. And I think that's an underestimated, like, people who really know the team and you really know hockey and how they used, like, because they used Krug offensively a lot. They used his offensive ability more, I think, more than, where it's really going to show this season. It will show this season a lot how they're going to have to adapt. Because a lot of their defensemen now, the young kids, are more just strictly defense. You don't have that guy who is as good of a shot as Krug was. I mean, I think McAvoy can get. I think McAvoy's shot is pretty good. It's not as quick or it's not as crisp as Krug's was, and they're not saying it can't get there, but they're going to struggle in that aspect of it too. Now let's move to the big one, the one that has a lot of Bruins Nation kind of torn in both directions.
Oh yeah,
I could see it coming, but it doesn't. I could see that, like. The one thing that got me was the contract that he signed with the Capitals was only like $800,000. So it's not like it was a big deal. The attitude of upper management said a lot during the negotiations.
Sure.
The attitude was there and the feel of the team and upper management was they were trying to get younger. But it's like, to my argument to that would be, why, if you knew Chara was at this point, like at the beginning of last season, why were you not transitioning him down from a top line defenseman to like a third line or a fourth line
right?
Because I still think he can be used as like a fourth line guy,
right?
As a top. Well, why not sign him for that $800,000 and just leave him on the fourth line, third or fourth line, to mentor the guys like McAvoy and DeBrusk and these young kids. Mm-hmm. That's where that's my side of the argument, where it's like, okay, I see where people are mad about it, but I can also see the other side where it's like, he was in the cup run for them. Like, Jake, let's be honest, man. He got spun around a lot in the playoffs. The defensemen that he was going up against were way faster than him and just way more agile. I mean, he's still that enforcer in front of the net. You're not going to mess with him in front of the net. Right. But the way the game is trending, you're like these. Look at Tampa. They sacrifice. I mean, Tampa's still big defensemen, but they've sacrificed speed, some size for speed. Their defensemen are so fast.
Oh yeah, and you have to think about it. I mean, and how I kind of break this down with Zdeno Chara. I mean, you have to think about throughout his career. I mean, this is a guy that was a big time draft pick out of the New York Islanders and had fit in well for them, but then eventually ended up taking that contract to Boston, and he feels a lot more like Boston. That's the funny thing about Zdeno Chara, is you don't really think of him as a New York Islander. You always think of him as a Boston Bruin. That's just the kind of mark he's left in this franchise. And and when he left,
let me just say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. It's going to be so hard for me to adjust to like calling him a Washington Capital.
I know. I mean, think about it this way. How do you think right now San Jose Shark fans feel about Joe Thornton up in Toronto?
About Thornton, yeah.
That's going to be an even harder transition. And again, you have to think about it. Another former Boston Bruin that then took the contract to San Jose at one point. But, you know, that's going to be hard. You know, it's going to be awfully hard transitioning the fact of how long Big Z has been in this franchise. And you have to think about all of the sweet moments that he's brought back to the franchise. I mean, think about it. 2011, you guys went absolutely nuts on that Stanley Cup win. And to see Zdeno Chara lifting the cup, I mean, that's a surreal moment. That's a surreal moment for everybody in Boston. But I
went to that parade. I went to that parade, and I don't think I stopped drinking for 3 days. Legitimately.
Come on, man. For as long as I've known you, man, I would not even doubt it for sure. I mean, come on now. But when you look at, you know, Zdeno Chara, I mean, I agree with you. I think he should have been left as a mentor on the third, fourth line. Here's the difference, though, now what's happening in this age of hockey. No teams is really needing enforcers anymore. Everybody knows how to stand their ground on their own. I mean, think about it. Like, I can tell you right now how many times Jonathan Marchessault, for as small as he is, he's freaking Mighty Mouse. He's going to come up and get into your face, and, you know, he's not afraid to swear down when he gets pushed around. You know,
even the little guys know how to throw their weight around.
Damn right they do. And that's where I'm like, so it's where all that shift is starting to move. And that's what's kind of unfortunate. But at the same time, these guys, they've been watching these enforcers like since they were little kids. And when they see them kind of hit, they know the techniques. But at the same time, take, for instance, a really good story. Max Domi. For his dad was a big time, like he was a forward, but he was more of an enforcer than he was of a lethal scorer. And Max was able to balance that. He was able to balance of being a lethal scorer, and he was also a big time enforcer. I mean, shit, when you got your dad kicking everybody's ass when it comes to an enforcer, man, I mean, you're going to learn things like that. You know,
you watch and learn, and you adapt your game to that.
Exactly. So now everybody gets adjusted to that. So it is unfortunate, but at the same time, when I look at Zdeno Chara and how he could have been utilized as a big time mentor for these up and coming kids, it is a tough loss. It's an absolute tough loss because now there's not a mentor there. And I think the only person that you can nab as a big time mentor is Patrice Bergeron, in my opinion. And so now he has to fill in the shoes that Chara was at one point. That's not going to be easy because he's trying to focus up on some of these young forwards coming up from the lines 4 and 3. And now you've got a bunch of defensemen. Like, you're going to tell me you're going to rely on your secondary defenseman after Krug, that he's going to end up being the big time, you know, difference maker for these young kids? Hell no. It's a lot to take on. Because think about it. San Jose did do this at one point where you would have Thornton lower down in the lines and was bringing some of these young forwards up. There's a bunch of lists of them. Even Patrick Marleau. Think about it this way. Toronto, with Patrick Marleau, was able to get the best out of William Nylander and Mitch Marner and even Austin Matthews, to where now this is where they're playing now. And that's the kind of mentorship a lot of these teams, when they see it, they're going to take advantage of it. And I think it's unfortunate that for Boston, they just couldn't come to terms with it.
And I think this is like, it couldn't really. So let's talk about now. So now that we're talking, this is an important season for the Bruins because one, the core, that core, that Marchand, Bergeron, Krejci core, those guys are not getting any younger. They are not. That window. I mean, I'll let you, give your thoughts. my thoughts are it's if they don't win a cup in probably 2 years, 2 or 3 years, that elite level play. I mean, these guys are in their mid-30s.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's going to slowly degrade, and it's going to disintegrate very, very fast before you know it. And not to mention, too, I mean, you're trying to build up these young guys like Charlie Coyle and a bunch of others up from, the fourth and third line. And that's exactly what Boston really has to do up to this point, because even though you're going to get impressive plays out of these guys, but for how long? And think about it, though, this way. I mean, for you covering a lot of Boston teams, you look at it. I mean, think of the Tom Brady situation. You're going to get so much play out of Tom Brady, but then eventually, when it's all said and done, who's now going to be the next heir to be taking over in New England? It's very, very tough, especially in this position with hockey, because guys are getting younger, guys are getting faster, and there's shots, whether it's close into the crease or it's back behind the line. These guys can really shoot it. But if you don't have the right guys that have the mentorship as well to train these kids to get them to be elite offensive scorers, I mean, we watch Pasternak almost all the time do his kind of thing. We watch a little bit of Marchand as well, but that's where it's really going to bite you. If you don't end up making the important moves now that's going to stabilize your guys' future builds, then that's where you guys are going to now have to make trades to get draft picks and at the same time get younger.
See, now where I think this couldn't have happened at a worse time, because you're at one, you lose a guy like Chara, who was a good mentor to those kids, but now it's like you have a shortened season, so every loss is now magnified, right? And now you have guys like Charlie Coyle, Studnicka, Brandon Carlo. You have guys like McAvoy. These young kids are going to have to step up into these pressure roles and really come through big for the Bruins. And it's that, I mean, that pressure alone, that's tough. Like it magnifies everything. And you're talking about a lot of these young kids who are moving a lot. They've moved the lines around, like guys like Grizzlick, who is a vet, but he spent his entire Bruin career in the midlines. Now you're asking him to be a 1-2 line guy, 1-2 line defense guy. Like, so you're talking probably a guy who's going to jump from maybe 8 minutes a night to a guy to go to like 20, probably exactly. Somewhere in that 20 range. And that's, I mean, doubling, 2.5 times plus, like that is a massive leap.
Yeah. And think about it, dude. It's a massive leap, and there's a lot of pressures on your shoulders. Even the guys that I'm looking at right now, like I see some of these youngsters. Yeah. Charlie Coyle being one of them, even Bjork, he's going to have to be a guy that needs to step up as well and get his game. He
was playing the top 2 lines today.
Oh, Lord.
But you know what I mean? Like, these young kids are having to step into roles that they're not used to. And with a shortened season, like, it's like the first probably 8 games, 10 games are going to be experimental.
Yeah, exactly. And I will say this, I mean, because it is unfortunate, with Andres Kaze, and his injury and stuff like that. That's a big time hit. But, you're hoping that at some point Kaze is going to end up coming back healthy. And maybe that could be a potential positive impact. If you get Kaze back into the line when he's all healthy, maybe he might be the guy that could at the very least be the domino that stabilizes. But ultimately, it's just going to be too much for Bergeron to try to handle to at least get these guys up and running. But I mean, I'm not saying it's not possible, but it's a much tougher task than what people think it is. Yeah.
No, it's the Bruins are facing an uphill battle this year. They're playing teams like the Penguins, and the division that they're in, they're not going to have it easy. Like, the Islanders are not an easy team, man. They're a scrappy, fight you to the end kind of team, and the Penguins are the same way. They're a scrappy team that doesn't give up. They're going to be challenged this year for sure, especially with all the youth.
Yeah, and think about it too.
Now let's kind of walk away from the Bruins a little bit. We'll kind of back off from the Bruins and let's talk about some of the teams that you like. So give me a couple of teams that you think are going to be teams to look out for this year that made good offseason moves.
I think the teams to look out for, for one, the St. Louis Blues. The fact that they moved off of Alex Petrangelo was a big time loss, but they made up for it. They fit the bill, and that's when they signed Torrey Krug out of Boston for 7 years. They have a stabilized defense. Now, the difference of it is because now they nabbed Ryan O'Reilly as captain of the St. Louis Blues. I know a lot of Blues fans are kind of pissed about that because they're, some of them are just like, dude, he's only been here for like 2 years, and they never gave that nod to Vladimir Tarasenko. And yes,
Tarasenko to me would have been the smart pick. They should have picked.
That would have been. It should have, because Tarasenko's been around this thing for a long time. You even have to think about Austin Matthews in Toronto. It's the same kind of spiel, but I do think St. Louis is going to be very tough because think about it. You've got a stone wall with Jordan Binnington there. There's always ice in his veins when it comes to smart goaltending and when it comes to making big time defensive plays. But the defense is going to be very much stabilized. Adding Krug in the middle of the mix and the puck passing is going to be very, very difficult. And that's going to be lethal to their offense.
And I think Krug is going to help alleviate some stress on the defense too, because he's so good at clearing pucks out of the zone that they're not going to have to work as hard on the back end, protecting Binnington because the puck's going to be gone.
Exactly. Other teams that I kind of look at, Tampa Bay, you already know they're still going to be
obviously, yeah.
Yeah. The other ones, I'm going to tell you right now, look out for Colorado. Colorado made huge moves, including that one that they got Devin Taves out of New York.
I really do like what Colorado did. Like, I think they took a step back, they reassessed, and they were like, all right, we need to reset our entire back end and shore that up. And I think they did a really good job of it.
Yeah, they done a fabulous job with it. They were able to clean that up. But now, of course, the question that it's going to be is, can Grubauer and can Francosi end up being the difference maker that makes this all possible? Because they do have the right guys with Sam Girard, Devin Taves in the middle of the mix. Cale Makar now is probably one of the youngest rising defensemen that I love his style of play. Think about it. You have Quinn Hughes in Vancouver, who, he was better than his brother Jack. But the presence the Bruins saw Jack Hughes against the Devils when we played them. Yeah.
He's good. He's good. Real good.
He is really, really good. You could tell how bright his future is going to be for the next couple of years of this franchise. But the other one, of course, the obvious, the Vegas Golden Knights are a team to look out for.
You had to go there.
I had to go there because, dude, this was the biggest addition. This is the part of
the Knights did a really good job in the offseason.
They did. They really, really did. Now, there were a couple of takeaways, and I'll get to that in a second, but this team made a huge move of getting Alex Petrangelo in the offseason. I was just like, wow, we got a top-tier defender with an uprising star in Shea Theodore. That's going to be very lethal, and that is going to help build our guys like Nick Hague, because I've been waiting for Nick Hague to be that top-tier defenseman soon, and I think having Petrangelo around, he's going to be that big-time mentor that's going to make him lethal in puck passing and also for scoring goals. But other teams that I've seen kind of lurking around, the Islanders are one team that, of course, ever since John Tavares left to go and take the contract in Toronto, the Islanders have been playing great hockey. And you could say it's the coach, you could say it's the players, whatever it may be. The Islanders have been figuring this thing out. Philadelphia also, too, I'm hoping that they do get things right because I do love their defensive plays. And also, too, Travis Konechny has really been he's been a stud. The only concern I have is, can Claude Giroux rebound from last season? My God, it's like he disappeared. And it's just like, dude, Claude Giroux plays better than that. I've seen spits of like how he plays, but Philadelphia will be an interesting team for sure. But as far as when we look at for the Canadian teams, I mean, what's really mostly to talk about except for, Montreal. But Montreal made a smart move that even if they got rid of Max Domi, they got Josh Anderson back in return.
No, that was a good move on their part. That was a good move on their part.
That was really, really good. But those are definitely the teams that I look at that are going to be very, very interesting to watch all throughout the season.
I was gonna go with you stole my two. I was gonna say the Blues because of the Torrey. The one thing that I think St. Louis really struggled with was the lack of speed on the back end, and Krug is going to help that.
Yeah,
he'll definitely increase that speed on the back end for St. Louis, and then obviously the Knights. I really did. I liked what they did, and the Flyers. I think it was the Flyers. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I like what they did. They opened up some money for themselves to make some moves in the future too, with a lot of those contracts, and taking on those, some of the ones that they did. I did like that. It's definitely going to be interesting. Like I think these with the new divisions too that they've kind of divided teams up into, it's you have to worry about playing teams like 4 or 6 or sometimes even 8 times in these divisions. So like we were talking about earlier, every win and every loss counts with the short season. So you gotta make them count.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, every single one of them, you got to make them count, and they all matter. Each and every single one of these games matter. But of course, you still want to be able to conserve your energy as much as you can, even when we get into Stanley Cup playoffs. But when it comes to the season mode and how short that it is, every game definitely matters because it's, of course, division placement. It's your seeding. Your seeding in the Stanley Cup playoffs. It matters to everything, and everybody wants to have the top seeds because that way, then if you punch your tickets into the top seeds of the division, that's where you're going to end up facing against all these low and wildcard teams, and you might still stand a chance for your playoff length throughout the time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's that whole the shortened season puts a whole new spin on everything. They because normally with the hockey season, you kind of really don't hit your stride until like 3 weeks in. Guys are still sluggish. Guys are still, they're still kind of getting their game legs underneath them, and they're still kind of getting their wind. Mm-hmm. But now it's like, you better get that in a hurry, because if you go on like a 4 or 6 game skid, that's gonna, with only a 57 game season, that in the end, if you're fighting for that 1, 2, 3 seed, I think those top seeds are going to be separated by very few games.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, man, those are going to be the difference makers in the middle of that season and close to when we're closing it up to getting ready for playoffs.
Now let's just go. So can anyone knock off the Lightning, or are they still the best? Are they still the best team in the league right now?
I think, honestly, they do have a chance. I honestly do think there are a couple of teams that do have a chance to knock off the Lightning. The Lightning are not superhuman, for one. I mean, think about it this way. It's like how all of us look at Kansas City. When we look at Patrick Mahomes and we look at, oh my God, his offense and all that is ridiculous. But they're beatable. They're beatable. It's defense. It's all about defense, and it's all about stopping. It's all about stopping the speed, because it's trying to lower it down to your level to where now it's used to your advantage. And here's the other thing. Last year, when the Knights were playing Tampa, this was right after the trade deadline. And we had a 6 game home stretch because that was not going to be easy, especially the way that we were playing. So when we came into that stretch and to win all of those games, I was impressed. And Tampa was the icing on the cake. And I cannot begin to tell you how many times Blake Coleman scares the living hell out of me. Every time when he gets the puck and he utilizes his speed, he's lethal. But what the Knights did right is that they utilized their speed against them. And they managed to control the puck. They managed to take smarter shot opportunities. And that's how they were able to convert those into goals and how they were able to pad their leads. And even at the same time, because that one was a 6-4 win. And they had to score against them. They had to match with their scoring abilities in order for the defense to now play comfortably where we need to shut down. We need to shut down this offense. They are beatable in every way. But the one big trick is using their speed against them. And that's where you have to be precise with it.
You either have to catch them the way that I think a lot of these teams are going to attack Tampa, and I think once they see how the Knights did a really good job of it, and it was Tampa is very good at taking those pucks from they go from the slot into the neutral zone, and the transition game for them is flawless. It's flawless and it's quick. And if you stop them, and you don't even have to stop them, if you jam them up and slow them down in the neutral zone and don't let them get a clean pass through, that's how you have to beat them. You have to meet them at center ice, or at you can't let them get to your blue line before your defense comes to meet them. You got to kind of stretch yourself out a little bit, even though I don't think it's comfortable for a lot of teams for their defensemen to go out to play that way, that far away from their own zone. But that's how you beat them. That's how you beat them. You don't let the speed get rolling.
Right, exactly. You don't allow the speed to start generating. Otherwise, it like I said, it's going to leave you in the dust when you do.
So let's end it on this. Your top three teams in the East and your top three teams in the West.
My top three teams in the East. That's tough for me on this one. But the Eastern Conference, the way that I look at it right now, my top three team, because this is going to be a wild card for me, but I feel like the top three team, one I would definitely look at is, I think it's going to be the Philadelphia Flyers for sure at number 3. I think this team definitely has real good pieces, and not to mention Carter Hart is really, really good. I think he's really emerged as a top-end goaltender. We watch what Jordan Binnington does. Carter Hart is really, really good. And here's what's funny. When the trade deadline came around last year, I really, really thought that Philadelphia was going to end up risking giving up Shane Goatsberry, and I thought Vegas was going to end up taking him if they could not look for a defenseman. But I'm glad that they managed to keep him. Travis Konechny's been playing really good hockey. Sean Couturier right now has been picking up the slacks. But my only concern about that at number 3 is how Claude Giroux is really going to bounce back after last season, because he just seemed like things were going well, and then he just disappeared. He was nowhere to be found on the ice, could not generate any scores or anything.
He might as well not even been there, because he was a non-factor.
Right, exactly. My number 2 team, it's kind of interesting, but I think it's kind of interesting, but I think it's going to be the Washington Capitals. I think this team, offensively and defensively, they have some really good pieces. Now, of course, the question is going to be goaltending. You know, if Samsonov is really going to be the real legit deal, because remember, they did sign a contract for Henley Lundqvist until he had to have surgery done. It's an unfortunate blow to the Capitals, but at the same time, Samsonov really has to step up in a big way for Washington to stay competitive. But again, you're talking about Alex the Great. You're talking about, Evgeny Kuznetsov. You're talking about, all these frontline guys. And of course, too, I mean, even the emergences of Jacob Vrana and a couple of other youngsters that are building themselves up to be very competitive. And here's the other thing, the defense. John Carlson is probably by far one of the second top tier defensemen outside of Victor Hedman. I think he's really, really good. And I think, and like we mentioned, and I hate to bring it up, but when Big Z took that contract, that's really going to strengthen up their defenses in the mentoring side. Because also, too, Washington, they ended up acquiring Brendan Dillon out of San Jose last year. And Dillon was probably a really good defenseman as well that I think follows up perfectly with John Carlson. But it'll be interesting. But I think Washington's really good at a number 2. And my number 1 team in the Eastern Conference, it has to be Tampa Bay. You can't stop that speed. That speed's ridiculous. Blake Coleman. It sucks that they lost Nikita Kucherov for the rest of the season, but you still have Stammer. You even got the defense.
They still have plenty of talent there to make a difference.
Plenty of talent. They will still make a difference as long as Andrei Vasilevsky is still playing quality goaltending, not to mention Victor Hedman and Ryan McDonough in the defense. They're going to be now this is actually the opportunity that guys like Sergachev and Anthony Cirelli and even Andres Palat are going to end up having to step up big time for their offense now with Kucherov on the sideline. But they're still going to maintain.
Let me ask you this. We'll end it with this, right?
Yeah.
Now, where would you put we have your top 3.
Yeah.
Where would you place the Bruins? And then I'll give you my thought. In a top 10, where would you place the Bruins?
I would probably
let's say top. Are they in the top 5? That's a better question. Are they in the top 5 or no?
They are unfortunately not in my top 5.
Okay. So where would they place then?
I think Boston has been nabbed at number 7 for me because I do think this team is still competitive. I think they still do have, because of the number 1, the first line is still competitive. They do have a bunch of really good guys like David Krejci, Charlie Coyle, and more along the way that are actually starting to build up to their potentials. But it's like you mentioned, the defense is not going to be like how it was when Torrey Krug was around. If Torrey Krug was there, I would say they're top 5 for sure. I would say that they are top 5. But how big that loss was, and the loss to Zdeno Chara, and having to now force these young kids to make it work, that's a really big task on them.
That's a big ask.
Yeah, it's a big ask for them. And I don't think they're going to be as capable. And not to mention, too, with Bergeron now being the new captain, he's going to have his hands full with trying to convert these kids to being competitive and to keeping Boston in the next couple of years, punching their ticket into the Stanley Cup. And that, that's why I'm just like, I think respectfully, because of still the talent they do have, they're stuck at number 7 for me.
See, I put them at number 5. I put them outside the top 3, but I did put them at number 5. I did put them at 5. They're still good, and they still have a high compete level. It's the one thing that concerns me that I would put them probably 5 or 6 or 7 in somewhere in that range. Would be the simple fact that they got all these young kids playing, and they're all switching lines, and they're all rotating down and up, and they're trying to experiment and figure out which who matches with who better. And that's in a season like this, that never, like, look at all the line, the guys that work the lines, like that are set in stone. These teams that have set in stone lines are obviously going to be better than them.
Right. And you kind of already have a thought of who my top 3 in the West are already going to be.
Oh, yeah.
We mentioned this earlier. I'm just like, listen.
Yep.
Vegas is definitely up on that list of top 3. Then you have St. Louis and follow it up with Colorado. Those are just my top 3 right there.
Yeah.
It didn't even matter what order you really put them in, but those are the 3 competitive teams in that Western Conference that are seriously going to make some noise.
I wouldn't argue with that. The Avalanche are going to be a real interesting team to watch this year.
Yes. They're going to be even tougher than what they were a season ago. The fact that they ended up acquiring Devin Taves from the Islanders, that was completely out of left field for me. And I'm like, oh, hell, Colorado's not messing around right now because they've got a young core defenseman in Cale Makar. He's going to be a rising star for the next couple of years in this organization. Then you're also talking about Matt Calvert and a bunch of other kids that they're building up along the way. But for as young and as strong as that first line is, when it's Rantanen, McKinnon, and Landeskog, that line is going to be dangerous for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be super dangerous. But even below them with their offense, like Nazem Kadri was an absolute steal. They're still.
I like that. I like that move a lot. I
do. Yeah. I really love that deal, and I think Toronto really paid a price when they lost it.
Mm-hmm. They should have never let him walk. They should have never let him walk.
Nope, absolutely not. And now you're seeing exactly how this. Another guy, Andre Burakovsky. What the hell? Like Burakovsky's another one that comes out of Washington that he all of a sudden he fits well with this Colorado team. I'm like, damn.
You got to think too. A lot of these times, these guys are being held down by talent above them, and they never really get a shot until they get on a new team where they can actually stretch their legs out and show what they can do.
Right, exactly, and that's where I think it's really benefiting them well for Colorado. For Vegas, the acquisition of Alex Petrangelo, I thought was huge. That was massive. That was what the front office is basically telling us is we need to bounce back. We need to be back in the Stanley Cup because we are not screwing around this year. Puck passing and offensive generating was a serious problem. And, of course, people didn't even believe me either, but goaltending was an issue. Defense was a massive issue.
Mm-hmm.
But they figured that out the second they got Alec Martinez, and they ended up getting a bunch of really good players.
Yeah.
I'm actually super happy that Nick Holden got cleared off waivers. I'm like, what the hell is Holden doing in waivers anyway?
Yeah.
Like, dude, he stepped up along with it. If it wasn't for him, we wouldn't even be like this strong defense that we are. And I think we really are going to be because having Petrangelo and Theodore there, Martinez and Holden, I do see are shut down guys. And then you have a wild card in Braden McNabb, who I'm really surprised they kept him for this long, but you utilize him everywhere. I mean, he's a big-time utility player. And the offense as well, nabbing Mark Stone as a captain for the first time in franchise history.
I like the Stone captain move. I do. I like that. I like the Stone. I like that a lot. I think that was a smart choice on their part to make him the captain. I thought that was a good move.
And I figured the reason that they had to do that was because of the fact of just the demeanor and the leadership he brings, not to mention the offensive aggressiveness he brings. That it's
have you seen how fired up that dude gets on the bench?
Always. Like that's how we play better when we have fun and we're actually hyped up. I tell people that all the time. I'm like, where's the smiles? Where's the golden misfits that they're at? Because that always seems to be our battle cry every time. When the misfits are out there and they're laughing, they're smiling, they're lethal. And that's that scares and intimidates teams. So
that line is scary. That line is scary.
Oh yeah. And Stone, like I said, Stone was smart because the reason of that is it's to build our young core. Keegan Colsor, Cody Glass, and eventually Dylan Coghlan. Those are going to be the 3-time forwards, young cores they are going to have to build up. And hopefully for Cody Glass, this is going to be a better season because that kid got roughed up left and right. So
I think he'll rebound. I think he'll rebound. I don't think he'll have a year like that. I don't think he'll have another year like that.
No, I think that was honestly just to break him in, and now I think he's ready. I think he's definitely ready to rebound this year. And then you have St. Louis where they got plenty of offense. They now have plenty of defense. They're not lacking anything, and that's why I just think St. Louis they're very balanced. They're very balanced. And having Binnington there as a young goaltender, that's a big time added bonus for them. That's why I think you're going to see them in the playoffs probably for the next 7 years because of that.
Oh yeah, they have a very good young core, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
But once again, thanks, Jake, for coming on, man. Appreciate you hanging out with me, talking some hockey. This 2021 season is going to be an interesting one. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Oh, it's going to be a lot of fun, man. Like I said, I've been waiting for a long time. I'm very happy that it's back. I mean, it just feels a lot like baseball season. So eventually, when we get pitchers and catchers report and we get spring training, baseball will be right there around the corner. But I'm very glad hockey season is back. I think this is going to be. It's a little weird because of the fact of how our divisions are broken up.
The new division, the new divisions that they made up, yeah,
the new divisions and everything else. I think it's going to be fantastic, and the fact that you have a Canadian division where it's just lonesome on their own, and none of these teams, even outside of their division, are ever going to meet each other until the Stanley Cup. Like that's literally how it is. Every one of them are all playing within their divisions because of traveling restrictions. So they are never going to see each other until the Stanley Cup playoffs initiates. But this is going to be very competitive, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I really do think this is going to be a fun time. And also for hockey fans, of course, we know today is Martin Luther King Day. But at the same time, too, this was also the day of the debut, and you know this better than anybody as a Boston Bruin fan, that this was the day of the debut that Willie O'Ree, much like Jackie Robinson, broke the color barriers in the hockey world.
And not only that, dude was really good.
And I have to think of your thoughts. Like when you look back at the history, like when you look in the history books of that, like what did that not only just mean for the Boston Bruins, but what did that even mean for
he broke that barrier, but not only did he do that, but he was really good too.
Mm-hmm. And it actually sent a message to the hockey world, like we can be competitive too. Oh yeah. You give us those opportunities and you give us those chances, we can be very competitive. And especially when you're talking about an old school history like Boston. I mean, you think about Pete Orr, Bobby Orr, and a lot of these big time guys in their histories. Boston's always been competitive all throughout the years, and they've had a lot of big time names through and through. So, like I said, I think his story and everything will always be remembered, but it's unbelievable when you talk about it. I mean, we talk about Jackie Robinson all the time.
Yeah.
But in the hockey world, if you haven't heard about Willie O'Ree, that's another story as well, that he's very competitive. But
look it up. Look up Willie O'Ree. Do yourself a favor and look him up.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And even the job he's put back into the community. That's what also does speak a lot about
giving back to the sport. Absolutely.
Absolutely. But yeah, like I said, man, this is going to be a fun season. Can't wait for it. And drop the gloves down and let's just keep on going with the season.
Let's make me fight you, bro.
Oh, dude, come on now. Just bring it over to me, okay? You got the Grim Reaper right here ready to square it up.
I'll fight you, man. All right, bro.
All righty, man.
Once again, thanks a lot, Jake. Thanks to Jake for stopping by. Jake, the Snake Silva from the Snake Sports Talk Show. Once again, guys, I will drop his link in the description. Go and check him out. He is an excellent play-by-play commentator and just an overall good dude, and he covers a lot of different sports. Jake, you do the A's,
I do the A's, I do the Golden Knights, and I do the LA Chargers. But of course,
A's, the Knights, and the Chargers, right?
Yep. And of course, too, I do have my regular show, which is the Snake Sports Talk Show, where I talk everything sports as well. So I cover up on a lot of big-time breaking news, hires, fires, signings, anything, or even just, rumor buzzes, just to keep entertainment, here in the YouTube, Twitter, or every single live stream.
And you have your show when is the Snake Sports Talk Show? When is the hours again? You do the morning one, right?
So I actually do the hours. They've changed now because of the fact that we're in the NFL playoffs. So I have it Tuesday, Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. When Monday does come around again, I will also have that at 7 p.m., 10 p.m. Eastern.
Excellent. All right, guys, I will drop Jake's link in the description. Make sure you go over there and give him a subscription and check his channel out. It's definitely worth it, and he's just an overall good dude. So once again, Jake, thanks again for hanging out. So before I punch you in the face and we get out of here, Thanks again, man. Thanks for coming on, talking some hockey, and hopefully the 2021 season is entertaining.
Oh,
but thanks
absolutely.
again, guys. From Jake and myself, this has been the first episode of the Drop the Gloves podcast, and let's have us a good hockey season. But for now, we out of here. Peace. We gone.